practice. And the other group was beating the crap out of her. And I just said, that other 5 you're starting. And she was pissed. Her dad was pissed. She sat for 3 minutes, but she came out and she had 18 rebounds that game. She had 16 points. She played awesome. We won. It's exactly what she needed. So we were able to hold her accountable. The other thing it did is I had 2 kids, a sophomore and a senior, that both had reasons to play, and they were kind of equal in their effort. Well, what we ended up doing was, depending on what our defensive strategy to start the game was, depending on who started. If I was going to do my half-court press, my sophomore started. If I was going to do my full-court press back into my half-court defense, my senior was going to start, because that's how the positions worked. And then the third and final one we did was, and this is what I really learned, there's some kids that we normally wouldn't start, but they actually do so great coming out the gate because they're so excited to play in that first few minutes. And then the other side of it, there's some kids that I know are going to have to help win us the game, but they really need to calm down and watch the first few minutes from the bench. And that's the biggest thing that saved us. Is I had a senior that ended up playing the whole year, played more than half the game, almost a third of the game, never started because she just needed those 3 minutes to cool down. So what I learned from that is I'm never going to say these are the starters. I'm also not going to give them any time to think about it. I'm going to tell them right before the game, this is what we're going with in the pregame, so they don't have to think about it. There's no text message conversations or conversations in the hall about why. Like, I'm going to let you know pregame who's starting, so that way everybody's ready. So that's at least kind of what I did, because I've been in your shoes, but love to hear what other people have to say.
Can I say one other thing too, Mike, on that? When I do my, playing my kids, I try to load also up. I'm not going to have I'm going to also have some power on my second crew to come in. And I think it's more important to have no roles, like you said too. So like I said, that's another thing too, is trying to equal it out and everything else. But
I had the talent you did. I could load up my second team too, Gene.
We are the upward understand. We don't beat anybody with looks. I can promise you that.
I'd like to add to that. So I kind of, last 2 years, I had a tale of 2 teams. This year I had a starting 5 that I stuck with the entire year, barring one injury. And then the year before I had 8 kids that any of the 8 kids could start. And it makes for a really competitive practice when you have 8 or 9 kids that they know that they can start at any time. And they worked hard in practice. And just like you, Mike, I would let them know sometimes right before the game who was starting. And I knew I was going to get everything out of them in practice. So I liked having multiple players able to start.
Let me speak on that, Mike. I think that there's so many good ways to coach. I mean, there's 100 different ways that we coach. And but I'm one, my philosophy is I like the same starting lineup. Now because of the way we play, we have to ideally need 8, but if I can use 10, I can use 10. But normally I ended up working in the tough games, getting people to 8. If you've earned a starting lineup, unless you do something that's detrimental to the team, or even if you're in a slump, you're going to maintain that starting lineup. I heard somebody say earlier about the mentality of young girls, and that's one of the reasons I don't change them. I don't play head games with them. They know who's going to start. I very seldom ever will bench a player for a quarter. If I'm going to bench somebody for disciplinary reasons, it's going to be for a game. So they might lose that starting spot, but if they don't pout and they're a good teammate, they get it right back. So, I mean, I've gone where the whole season where I've had the same starting lineup the whole time. And that's the way I like it. Like I hear what Diane says, and for what she does, and she had so much success, I know there's different ways to coach, but I do like one starting lineup.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback on that to say I've kind of done the same thing. I usually keep it consistent just because, like you said, like I don't like to mess with their minds. But, if I feel like I want to start, if a kid has played well in the first half, I'll readjust in the second half and I'll start that kid the second half. I dealt with that a lot this year. I mean, this year was pretty easy for me because we didn't have a ton of talent, but in the years past, you know, and I've also been in situations where we've had kids like, we had a kid the year we won the states that was a super explosive, great player, probably should have been starting, but she was the kind of kid that needed to, like, you know, watch the game a little bit before we could throw her out there. And so, you know, that was our kind of mindset. She probably should have started because she was like probably one, you know, one of that top 5, but mentally it was tough for her. I mean, but usually for me, you know, my 5 is my 5. You know, I wish I had 10 kids that could all compete for a starting position, but never really been that way.
I think you got to be careful with this though too. You know, because one, you know, we talked about the head games with kids. Guys are a little bit different. I think you can challenge guys sometimes, and maybe kind of pull them in and out of the lineup a little bit. And the other thing is, you know, if you do set that first 5, and I've done it both ways, and I would rather have a set 5, is that those guys on the bench, they have to really be sure of themselves and confidence themselves to value themselves within that team. If not, it's kind of like, there's the starters, and no matter what I do, I'm not going to get in that starting lineup. And I think that's a little bit of a slippery slope there. If you do go with one set starting lineup, does the work ethic of those kids, does it drop off some? You know, but again, I do like to have the starting 5 the same, but I think you do have to, I don't know, dangle carrots out in front of those guys, or, you know, they've got to believe that, hey, you know what, if I perform, I've got to have that chance to be able to get in that starting 5 as well. Hope that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm like Larry. I don't change my starting 5. I keep the same starting 5 from when the season starts. Somebody's got to get hurt, or someone's got to do something in school for me to change it. Now, I will change it at halftime. Have been known to do that, but I do keep my starting 5 as it is.
So for you guys like Larry and Harris, like, so there's obviously been years where you guys have 7, 8 kids that can all play. Like you guys have that now, and you know. So how is it that you come to that? Okay, when do you guys just make that decision, and how do you make the decision that this is definitely the 5 that we're going with, and this is what we're doing? If you have 6, 7 that are pretty close, how do you make that? What is your determinant to make that call?
How they compete in practice and how they compete in workouts. Workouts in normal school was starting in September, and how they competed in the gym. I don't have what's called open gym. I don't believe in that, to where you just come in and you scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
We go through, you know, stations and drills, and you can pick out right then and there in your mind, you know, who's going to be your starting 5. But I will say this for us, and I can echo this with Larry's, because we're just about mirror images and mirror teams. They go so hard against each other. Your starting 5 is just a starting 5 to start the game, and your girls know they're going to play. I think that's our mindset. They know they're going to play. And it's not old school that I am. It's not who starts, it's who finishes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the mindset that we have.
But with us at Spotswood, the following Monday of our last game, we turn in our uniforms, varsity and JV. Our starting 5 is put on the board for the next year. Our depth chart, like, this is our number 1, this is our number 2, 1, and our number 3, 1. All the way across the board, varsity and JV. And that way, a lot of times we're going to put kids in that starting 5 that aren't going to be there by the time the year gets there. But politics and everything are gone. If I give that senior an opportunity to start, and we start summer league, start camps, it becomes pretty obvious that kid isn't the starter. The next person moves up. That's been really positive to us, because kids can check that depth chart anytime they want. They walk in there, they look at it. Parents can go in there and look at it. My door's wide open in the gym. Walk in. They'll come and ask questions. Kids start working their ass off a little bit because they know where they stand at all times. and it's an open damn book.
Chris, let me ask you a question on that.
Go ahead. Yeah.
If you don't mind. So what if you got a kid that plays multiple positions for you? Do you count them on both positions for you on the depth chart?
But we will list the 15 top players. 15 top point guards, 15 tops two. Just like that. Now, when we start, I will put a rotation chart at the bottom to get to like what you're saying. Like this year, McKenzie was our point guard, Lexi the 2, Rebecca, Abby the 3, so on. And then it shows on our first rotations, Lexi's leaving the game and Rebecca's coming in. Madison's leaving the game and our other post players coming in. On our next rotation, Lexi's back in, McKenzie's out. Other posts is back in, Stephanie's out. So it kind of shows you in the rotation part who is actually your second point guard, who is actually second up at some point. Like I said, a lot of those guys, we were really good 7. We were pretty good 8 and 9. But we were really good 7. And the way we do it throughout the year, we have a guys team, which is the gray team. We have a second group, which is our white team. And we have a blue group, which is our first team. That way we can keep our front 7 together and always interchange those guys. We keep our starting 5s. We kind of set it up because we know that if I'm going to press the shit out of you, sometimes I want to come off the bench with 2 girls that are going to just bring that energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're starting to wear out, we're going to hit you with more energy than maybe we started. We try to kind of set our starting lineup that way. Kind of like you guys said earlier. The only way we really change that, maybe somebody gets sick or out for a week or so, and somebody really shows, you see that there's a difference there. You know that some starters, like y'all said, just aren't very good starting.
Mm-hmm.
They're much better coming off the bench. So I think, it depends on your team and your personalities. Also depends on your parents. Some parents just can't take the damn fact that kid ain't starting. I'll start a kid like that sometimes, put their ass out in the first minute and a half of the game. Parents still happy they didn't play much, but they started.
And I'll piggyback off Chris. We actually did that, Chris, this year in a preseason. We did a depth chart, and I did it from these are the different positions, and I did it where, well, you may be my starting point guard, but you may be my second best player at this other position while I put you there. And I found 2 things from it that worked really good and worked really bad. What worked really good is, hell, we had some great competition early in the season because kids got really pissed if they weren't where they thought they wanted to be. The other thing is when we got down to it, like the very last kid, they lost hope in some ways. They just couldn't figure it and what I noticed was it was really good for my top 8. It wasn't great for my last 2 and given that great thing, which I don't know which is better or worse. Honestly, for me, I was more happy having my top 8 compete better and wasn't too worried about the bottom 2 personally because it's the bottom. I mean, I hate to be that way, but it's the bottom 2 for a reason. But I think there's some validity to it, Chris. And you've been doing that a while, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Again, my open gyms, I love parents to be involved as much as they want to help. They want to jump on the floor some. If they're knowledgeable. If it's just sometimes you don't know what the hell they're doing. Kind of knowledgeable parents. I don't mind them. Or at least being in the gym, sitting there having a conversation. I think the more open conversations you have with people, or you can dip stuff in the bud that just doesn't deal with that. But like last year, we finished a game, and the guy stood up. He's like, "Really? The score was 15-8. Y'all had the score wrong, and this girl scored 12." And in front of the whole open gym, I was like, "Sir, when I tell you come to your place and tell you how to make a pizza, come in here and tell me how to cook. So right now, you just lost your rights to be in the gym." He was done. And we let him back in after about a month. He figured it out quick, Grow up in rec league, being the best player you get added just to say a little bit more.
I gotcha. Well, Gene, I don't know if this helps you at all because you pretty much got a split room.
It helps just hearing everybody's because I've always been, like, you got to understand, I've been doing it 32 years, and I went with starting lineups all my life. I just know that in the last couple of years, if your program gets to a certain amount of success, some kids can get complacent a lot of times. And I like what Coach said a few minutes ago. I think sometimes it's a slippery slope sometimes with some kids feeling that they can't work their way in. And I'm trying to find a way to put a little bit more fire, but not upset the apple cart, because I'm not planning on changing what we do, because we've been pretty successful in what we do. So, but I'm trying to find ways to do things better. And we all know this. Every year's different. Every team's different. Sometimes you got seniors. Sometimes you got younger kids. I believe in roles more than I do starting and all that stuff, because, like I said, but I also know that you need a good start. The way we play, we're going to press you made miss shot all the time for 32 minutes. So it's so important to make sure that first 3 minutes, 4 minutes, you hit them with everything you got. And then, like Coach said, you got to bring somebody off the bench that brings just as much energy. And then you got to open up the second half the same way. So a lot of good stuff, and I appreciate everybody contributing to that and getting some good ideas, because it's just making me think. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's
I tell people to come right off of that. I tell people all the time, y'all talk about finishing games. I tell people, I need strong players at the end of each quarter, because we want to be the team that takes that little bit of momentum in every break at the quarter, every break at the half. I mean, a lot of times, you don't. I tell people, if take your value by when you're in the game. If you're in there at that point, you're trying to get us that little bit of momentum going into the half. I don't want to have my last guys in there giving up an 8-0 run at a half, giving somebody a little hope.
mm-hmm.
I also think we're all in pretty good situations, because I think when you win big a lot, you can play your last 7 kids against their first 7. Hard for a parent a lot of nights to go, yep, my kid ought to be out there. A lot of times they're like, there's why. Put her back on the bench. Yeah, and a lot of times it lets you see where they really stand against the other team's best players.
Chris, your parents have such a different awareness than mine do, because they don't have that. Another topic was practice design, and like a lot of coaches on the takes mention, like, hey, that's an interesting one, and I wanted to hear from you guys on that. And what I think people are looking for is, we all know every single one of us have hard, intense practices, and we go hard, and that's why we're successful. Like, we don't need to talk about just how hard our practices are, because we all know we do it. I think, at least in my perspective, and maybe somebody else can say it better, like, what's something that you do, a very detailed thing, or just something you do that's maybe a little different, other than just saying, hey, we just go harder than other people, because we already kind of know that. But, I'd love to hear what you guys do with the way you design your practices, or the way you go about the thought process of it, from a detailed perspective.
I'll start with that. We run very, very detailed practices. Like, I get a practice schedule done. I have a form that I do the practice schedule, and I have it usually done by 9 in the morning. And then that way my girls can come during the school day. They'll stop in to see what's on the schedule. And it can be very detailed. We might be doing 20 things that particular practice. And we use a clock, and everything is just timed, and we don't go long at anything. So we might go 10 minutes of this, 15 minutes of this, 8 minutes of this, 6 minutes of this. And it goes boom, 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 boom. And of course, we mix conditioning into that. But the girls know before practice exactly what they're going to do, minute by minute. We very seldom, I'd say 99% of the time, we stay right on schedule. And that way they can mentally prepare. And I learned this early on. When I didn't give them the practice schedule till when practice started, they would look at it and I would lose mentally. So this way, they're able to mentally prepare. And it's kind of cool to watch them all day. They're stopping in my room to pick up a practice schedule. So that's how we do it.
Larry, I want to ask you a question. Do you ever, that's the majority, do you ever intentionally change something on that just to throw a wrench at them?
I never do. Now something like as we get deeper in the playoffs, I might not be satisfied with something deeper in the playoffs. And I say, okay, because if we can get ahead, we'll get ahead. Once I'm satisfied where they're at, and I had 10 minutes scheduled, we did it in 8, we moved, we jump on. That way, if I have to spend a couple more minutes on something else, so I might change that. I'll tell you the other thing that we don't do, and I know there's different rules of thought on this, and I know our boys do the exact opposite, is I never, ever just full court scrimmage. Everything is controlled. If we do anything full court, it's a controlled thing. Half court scrimmage, and we do a lot of half court stuff, but it's 20 minutes, okay? And then we're looking for specific things. We stop at every few seconds, correct things. So we just never full court scrimmage. And I'll tell you where I notice that is in the beginning of the season, sometimes we're not as far along. And then by the middle to the end of the season, we're clicking on all cylinders. Sometimes it's because the new kids coming on board don't know really how to convert these drills that we do to game situations. But I've always been a believer in that and a stickler in that. And I've had college coaches say, look, I'm coming down. I want to see some scrimmage. And I said, you know what? I'm coaching my high school team. I'm not worried about satisfying a college coach. And we just run it our way,
Hey, Larry, quick question for you. Do you ever go, because you go in half court, do you ever go on turnovers? Do you ever have them play that live, or you'd stop it on that?
No, we sometimes will make it we count turnovers, of course, because they're going to run for turnovers. But sometimes we'll stop it to correct something. Sometimes we'll let them play through, especially if we're working offense that particular day. And most of the time we're working offense because defense, they know what to expect. And it's hard to put my second 5 or put just a couple boys in there and being able to run my defense the way we want to run it. So we'll work on some specifics. Most time it's offense. So if offense is getting if there's a loose ball and they get it, we continue to play. If defense gets the ball, we stop it, and because we're going to reset and talk about what happened. I think did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much.
Hey, I'm curious. How many of you guys, other than Larry, let your players see the practice schedule, or how many of you guys just roll with your practice schedule? Does that make sense? What I'm asking.
No,
mine see mine 10 minutes before practice because I don't teach at school.
I got you.
So when I get to school, on the door of the locker room and in the board in their locker room, because I get there before they're out of school, I put it up then, and they get to see it for 10 minutes. And then we're on the floor. But like Larry, the only time that I go full court on anything is when we go over our press. And then we'll go 5-on-none full court on our secondary offense, but the rest of the time is stations and half court work. And each thing that we do in half court, 8 to 10 minutes, and that's it.
Bruce, I'll tell you, it's kind of like Franklin, they see it before, but I'll also I've even given them a fake practice schedule before. I'll give them one that's an old one just to throw them completely off. And there will be times where we're in the middle of practice and this is a plan. Well, maybe off of something we're seeing, we just want to change it and go about it that way. I think I like the fact of them seeing it and getting mentally prepared. It's kind of like what Gene said the other week, which I'm going to steal this idea, giving them 1 minute to start practice and just get themselves mentally prepared. That's such a great concept. Well, I also want to throw a wrench in their system because a lot of times what happens with us is, well, hey, maybe we thought this game was in the bag and this team just went on a run on us. Well, what now? Maybe what we were doing is not working. We got to do what now? So we try to do a little bit something just to change it. And again, I don't work in the school that I teach at, so my kids can't come and see the practice plan earlier in the day, so they don't see it till the end. But I do sometimes change it, and sometimes I'll even they'll see an old one, and we're not doing any of that stuff. So.
Hey, question for you guys that is shown prior to. do you ever get guys or players that kind of hold back a little bit in practice? They're like, man, I know the first 15, 20 minutes is this. Then we're hit a little hard spot, and then man, I know I gotta keep some in the tank because at the end of practice we're gonna go really, really hard. Do you ever get any of that?
No, but that's one reason, unlike Larry, I guess it's good that I don't teach in school. So they don't get that long a time to really look at it and understand what's going to happen to them that day.
I think that's a big point if you're a coach that just likes to run the shit out of people. If it just says 10 minutes conditioning at the end of practice, then I think you got people who are starting to tank. But I think if they know that your conditioning's coming throughout, if I'm going to be in a full court fast break drill, they know that's going to be up and down and hard, and we're going to get out there during that time. Then we're going to go to a half court or something. Then we'll get back and forth. We'll go up and back where we're going. I think it's great for people to see a schedule and take a look at it if they know it's just not this big action pack. We're going to kill you at the end.
See,
I've also had days when they have sucked the night before, and I'll just come out there and put my schedule on the wall, and it says, "We don't need a ball. Your ass is in trouble." And it's sometimes they need to know that. But for the most part, you're not just conditioning. Some people still do it. I just don't put them on the line for 20 minutes at the end of a practice.
No, I don't do that either.
Yeah, I don't do that either. I just didn't know how when you're catering your practice, if kids would see it and view it that way.
What you asked about if they tank, one of the things, and I guess this is through experience, that everything that we do when we're doing a full court fast break drill, everything's timed. And so one of the things that I do is I break the schedule up. Like if they have a hard 20 minutes, they got to bust their butt for 20 minutes, then we might be doing some shooting drills. Or a lot of times if I just kick their butt, we get ahead a little bit, then we'll shoot some free throws. But they know those breaks are coming in, and I'm like, Chris, I don't just put them on the line at the end. Very seldom. Every once in a while we'll do something like that. But we just condition throughout, and I break that schedule down so I know they're busting their butt here. Then I'm going to give them a 10-minute drill, which is not as hard. Something else. And we do that throughout practice.
Larry hit a huge point that I think that everybody needs to keep in consideration when you get a group of coaches together. Different things work for different coaches, and we're all just trying to figure out how to get better and everything else. And I think a lot of that has to do with your personality and how you do things. I do not let my players see a practice schedule for this reason, and y'all already mentioned it. I don't want them to know what's going on because I don't want them saving anything. Because I'm not a runner. I'm not a guy that runs kids. The only time my kids are going to run sprints is for discipline or they're not doing something right. Okay, because I thought I said this the other day, but I heard Hubie Brown talk about it a long time ago. A thing about the kid hating it, and why did he hate it? Because at the end, the coach ran his guts out, and so kids in our practice. One thing that we're going to make sure that we try to do is we're not going to have kids pacing. It's going to be at a high rate of pace. We're not going to waste any time at all. And with that situation, we have a couple of rules, non-negotiables. They can't walk anywhere. They better not take a step. That they're not sprinting everywhere. I mean, our kids know that. So pace and how we flow into our drills and how we do things, because I'm probably different than this. I practice 25 to 30 kids together. Our whole program practices together. So, if I practice my whole program together, I better be able to take 30 kids and keep them engaged and keep them going. Because if I don't, we're getting nothing done in practice. So we have something going the whole time. But the biggest thing is we want to have flow to practice. We want to have high pace at practice. And we want to make sure that we don't have a bunch of kids standing around. If I've got drills where they're standing around, then I need to reevaluate my drills. So, I just think it's so big that we keep the pace that we want to play the game at the whole time. So, everybody talks about making the practice harder than the games. That's one of the things we're trying to do.
I want to ask a question. I'm going to tell you why I'm asking it, but you guys have had so much different success in playoffs. Is there any different approach to once you get to that time of the season. I know we cut down time a little bit, but and I'll give an example. One thing I did this year that I think really honestly led us to playoff success was if we would have an hour 15 practice, my assistant coaches would probably coach 45 to 50 minutes of that and do skill work and individual breakdown work and just focus on getting that kid better because they should already know our stuff. And I didn't talk to them. So then what I found is when that happened, the 10 or 15 minutes where I was instructing on either the game plan or getting something, because they were not hearing my voice all the time and because they'd been hearing my voice for 4.5 some months, they listened to me so much more. And that in and of itself led us to some really good, I felt like, games and playoffs. That's probably something that I'll always do and always remember that. Is there anything that you guys have that you can share that you guys do maybe differently in playoffs that you've seen have worked, or do you even, how do you approach that?
I take the Hubie Brown philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
I got to hear him speak at a clinic a long time ago. All of us at the beginning of the season, we have, hour and a half, 2 hour practice. When playoff times get here and we're getting ready for the state tournament, now this is just me, and this is me just being different. If we're in there for an hour, we're done. We're done. It's mostly drill work, shooting, free throws, a little bit of conditioning. We do a walkthrough on the press, our offense, what we have scouted with the other team, and then we shoot again, and we're done. Because I try to keep them as fresh and keep their legs as fresh as I can in the playoffs. I'm not going to grind them. I'm not going to bust them. They know what it means when they get there, and I just try to keep mentally sharp, but keep their bodies sharp. We will, after practice, probably take 30 minutes to go watch film. Not of who we're going to play, but of how we look during the season. I'll pick a game. Like a PH game when we played y'all, right before the playoffs. Hey, look, this is how we were. This is, what we did. This is what they did to us. Somebody else has probably seen this, but that's just how I do it playoff time.
I'll touch on this a little bit because I've done something the last 2 years in a row different. I actually gave them off the whole 2 weeks for Christmas. And the last 2 seasons I've done that, and we've been in the state championship the last 2 seasons. So I just feel like that break in the middle. And, the first year I was like really scared. I was like nervous about doing it because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to come back so out of shape or whatever. But honestly, it was like the end of the season, they were such better, their mindset and their bodies, it was nice to have that time to recover. And not only for them, for me too, like, I felt kind of guilty, but literally gave them the whole gave them the whole 2 weeks off. And, I felt like that was beneficial to us towards the end. That burnout wasn't there.
Coach, I can't give 2 weeks off, but I kind of took your philosophy. We quit traveling during Christmas. We used to travel a lot and do, overnight and all that stuff. But now we try to give them more time during Christmas and everything else and spend with family. And so, and I can say it really helped some. It really did, because I think that it made us a little bit fresher at the end and everything else. But we try to do our tournament in the Thanksgiving and all, and now take Christmas off. And cause I'm trying to get more prepared early and try to get their legs up under. And I think it's been a positive later on for us. I really do. But some people's got to go for exposure and need to go to big Christmas. I get all that, but we're kind of past that now.
Yeah, same here. We actually do it. Like, we're going to go to Phoenix and Dallas before Christmas. So we'll load up before Christmas with all those exposure events. I'm going to give them 2 weeks off for Christmas, and then we'll come back and, have a couple days or so before we play again. And I think it helps when you schedule a little bit weaker competition after Christmas. So maybe you can, you won't take any of those losses early coming back.
And I'll tell you guys, the same concept, but we went about it differently. We've started scheduling a little bit more around Christmas, so that way we can get games in. So during finals weeks and the regular school weeks, we're not playing 2 or 3 games. That's just how Virginia works. And at least for us, we feel like, well, if we're not traveling on the road for distance road games during a school day, those to us, that's what drags on. I feel like, at least for, my experience with my program, we can do the Christmas things if they're cool and there's something different. But if we're playing 3 games 3 weeks out of January and we're traveling on the road, like, I think that January is like the month that I try to really unload games. And the only way I've figured to do that, because in Virginia, you can't play at Thanksgiving. The season hasn't started yet for the public school, is we have to load up on Christmas. So we'll see how it goes this year if everything works out. And then maybe I'll have to take your guys' approach if it doesn't work out for us.
Coaches, this
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm about to say, coaches, this Coach Melvin Heggie here from Glenn High School in North Carolina. I got on the call a little bit late, and I just wanted to touch on a couple things that you guys were kind of talking about with how you run your practices and how you structure things throughout the year. So for us, what we do is once our kids come off that AAU season in July, I give them, we get 2 weeks off. Of course, our state has a dead period anyway. So we usually start preseason workouts about August 15th. And what we do from there is we don't touch a basketball until September 1st. And that is 3 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week with weight room, agility stuff, conditioning and things like that. Just kind of trying to, condition their bodies to the way that we play and what we'll do throughout a season. Of course, once we get into season, practices we're 2 hours. We try to stay pretty sharp to that 2 hour standard. Once we get out of that preseason and get into the season, we don't do excess running in practice. Like I don't discipline with running in practice. We have this thing called the coach's court, where it's off to the side of our main court, and we have what we call sleds, which is 3 45-pound rubber weight plates, and they're wrapped up in big beach towels. And so, of course, for discipline, it's a couple down and backs pushing that plate up and down the court. So that's our discipline. At the end of practice, every day we run a set of things we call 30 and 4. And so it's 4 minutes on the clock, and it's 30 touches, full court touch and come back. And that's less about physical conditioning as it is mental conditioning. Like they know that every day, no questions, whether it's a walkthrough or an hour and a half or a 2 hour practice, you got your 30 and 4 at the end of practice. It's something that you got to get through. It's something that you got to do. It's going to happen. No questions whatsoever. So once we kind of get through the first part of our year and we get after the Christmas break, of course, our conference play starts after Christmas. We knock practices down to an hour, 15 minutes or so. And so, and that is game planning for opponents, addressing our issues from the past game, and a whole lot of shooting. Because it's my belief, once you get into those latter parts of the season, we've been rolling since with basketball stuff, install work, skill work, teaching system and all of that since September 1. If you don't know it by then, it ain't nothing new I'm teaching you then. So, and that when we get to that part of the season, a lot of shooting, because a lot of us know. I mean, you can run what you want to run. You can be as sharp as you want to be when it comes to that latter part of the season in the playoffs. But if you have an off shooting night and you ain't making shots, a lot of times, man, your luck's going to run out anyway. So, like, that's a lot of what we do when we get to that part of the season. Again, I'm with Coach that spoke earlier. I'm about conserving their bodies, making sure we're healthy through the latter stretches of the season.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to ask you guys a question that something that's been on me. How do you guys approach free throws? I always thought, practice, the more you practice, the better you get. Actually, this year, I made a point to shoot free throws less so they wouldn't think about it. And I'll be damned if we didn't shoot 17% better. So we'll randomly do, I'll just pick, like if a drill goes well or something, I'll say, hey, we got another minute here. Hey, everybody get to a bucket. Let's everybody shoot a one-on-one. We may do one-on-one 3 or 4 times only in a practice if that. Maybe it's only one or two. And I promise you, that's the only time we shot free throws all year, and our percentages went up. I don't know if that's luck or if I was or what it was, but at least for me, like I felt like it took some of our shooters. They weren't thinking about it so much. But what do you guys do? How do you all approach that? Because free throws could take up a considerable amount of practice time.
I think it comes down to. Go ahead, honey.
Well, I was going to say I agree with you in that sometimes I think it depends on the team. There's some teams that the more you concentrate on free throws, the worse you shoot. And then there are some teams that, are just pretty good. We had the last couple of years, we shot the ball on the free throw line pretty good. There is one drill that my kids love, and you put 2 minutes on the clock, and it's called 4-6-8. And you put 2 kids to all 6 of the baskets. And so you're looking to make 4 in a row, and then 6 in a row, and then 8 in a row in 10 minutes. I'm sorry, in 2 minutes. And that's a real good challenge for them.
And how many kids are at a bucket?
Usually 2. Like if you have more than 12, but 2 to a bucket, 2 minutes on the clock, make 4 in a row, make 6 in a row. And it's also a communication drill because the kid is looking at the rim. And so your partner has to say, when you should start your routine. And it's a great drill, and the kids love it a lot.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I think it really comes to the psyche of your team. You have some teams that are or some kids that are just so mentally wound tight that the fear of it just takes over, and focusing on it just makes it worth it. Something that you have to focus on. I do my free throws at the end of all of our tough. We're just coming off a tough drill, we're right into a free. Right down in right there. We also try to do a lot of fun games. We play a golf game, if you make 2 in a row, you get to take 2 shots each time you make 2. Make both of them, you're birdie. You make 1, you're 1 over. If you make 2, you're 2 over. Trying to come in with the lowest score. We do a lot of things like that. If you swish both of them, you don't hit the rim on both of them, you get an eagle -2. Try to throw a lot of funness in there too, so that it's not just a scary. Not every time you step up there, it's not for running or something else. So add a little fun to it, and do it a lot more wore out and tired.
I think those are some real good points because free throws got a lot to do with what type of team you got. I think we all have some good free throw drills. But one thing that we like to do is when we shoot free throws, especially sometimes in different days of the week, we make sure that we put people into slots and have practice boxing out on free throws. And so we make sure that, because another thing is too, even the environment that you put them in, sometimes you put them up there and there's nobody in the lane lines, that's a little bit different. So we'll put at least 3 people at a goal, sometimes as much as 5. And so they got to shoot a 1-and-1 because I don't shoot a lot of other than 1-and-1s because they're never going to shoot more than 2 free throws anyway. Okay, unless you do it working on repetition, sometimes that's good. But we'll make sure that we teach those kids how to step up the line to box out. Because I'm telling you, I see a whole lot of games won and lost on a offensive board on the free throw line. And so we make sure that we're working on other aspects. And all our drills go back to practice. We're not working on one skill. We're trying to incorporate all kind of skills into it. And so, like I said, we make sure that we're working on boxing out. We may even had a kid working on taking a step and swimming, try to get there so they're boxing out. So we try to incorporate that a lot in our free throw drills too.
I'll throw another thing out that I just want to see your opinions on. For me, I've realized the less I try to do in a day, the better. Like sometimes I can make a really great practice schedule and it's to the minute, but sometimes I feel like I'm trying to do too much. How much, when you guys do a practice plan, how many things do you think you're trying to get accomplished that day? Would you say, like, when you think about it, like, are you really trying to do 2 or 3 things a day and get better? Are you trying to do 10, 11 things to get better? Like, how do you guys approach it that way or think of it that way? Or how do you or is what I'm saying, like, make no sense at all?
I agree. I think less is more sometimes. Like, some days we may just be focusing on, we'll do the skill work and then we'll focus on our press. Like I do a thing, so we press a lot too. And and I'm big on and that's why I talked about part to whole stuff. Cause let's just say the top of our 2-2-1, we work on our rotations in that. And then we'll work on the back of it. And then we do something that we started this, I think last year, we call the press game. So they may have 10 minutes to score 15 points. There's only one team on the floor pressing. If they get a turnover, they can come down and score it. If they score, that counts as a bucket for them. So it forces our kids to really focus on working hard in the press. And it's that group. So if it's that starting 5, they press for the entire time. Now, if the other team scores against the press, they get the ball back and we're back into our press. But, we break that down. We break all parts of our press defense down and we drill it out. The top line drills it out. The middle line drills it out. And then we put it all back together and we play like a press game or whatever. But I agree, less is definitely more sometimes, especially early in the season when you're really trying to be detail oriented and trying to figure out who you're going to put where in certain positions.
I totally agree.
At the beginning of the season, I do this thing called the season at a glance. So what I'll do is I'll sit down with my calendar and I'll go through the first part of the season before Christmas, and I will detail through the calendar all of my practice stuff as far as by the first game, we want to make sure that I have this in. We want to have this press break in, this press break in. We want to make sure that we're this far along with our read and react offense and stuff like that. And so that season at a glance kind of tells me what we're doing on a daily basis in practice. So once I get to a week and I'm making a practice plan for the week, especially once I'm in the season, I can say, all right, based on the season at a glance, we should have this done by this time of the year. We should be into this. Kids should be understanding this. So once I make that practice plan, every day there's 2 things that we're doing in practice every day. We're going to do a bunch of passing and we're going to do a bunch of shooting. Because a couple years ago, I felt like we were the worst passing team in the state of North Carolina. And I felt like, I'm never going to let that happen again. So I'll make my practice plan for the first 45 minutes of practice. The first 30 minutes of practice are going to be completely detailed with drills, what we want to make sure that we're getting done, all the topics that we're going to touch. The next hour and 15 is make sure that we get through press break, half court, shell, what have you. And everything else in between is going to be room to go over a little bit or deviate a little, because I always deviate from the practice plan a little bit, because when you're letting your kids play some, they're gonna touch on something that you got to correct or a gray area that has to get figured out or something like that. So I always give myself a little room for adjustment when it comes to that.
Mike, can I tell you something that's kind of been successful for me for a while? And I know this is going to sound crazy to some of you, but it's been really good for us. I have install Saturdays. And so what we do is this. I found out that early in the season, Fridays is almost a waste of time because of football games. It's a struggle almost all the time, and usually everybody gets pissed off or whatever. So what we've done is this. We practice up until the season on Saturdays, but our Saturdays practice are installs. And what I mean by installs is this. In our program, we have 4 foundations that we're going to try to be great at. With our half-court sagging man-to-man defense, our 1-2-2 containment press, our dribble drive offense, and our zone principles when attack. So on Saturdays, I tell my kids, we're not going to come in here to try to kill you or whatever. We're taking one of those fundamental or one of those foundations, and we're breaking it down from the bottom all the way from the parts. We're going to put everything in, like the first one is always going to be our half-court defense. So we're going to come in, we're going to explain our terminology. We're going to put every part, every drill, all the shells, all the things together. And it's a learning situation. Now, when I say this, like I said, please don't think I'm crazy, but usually to do this, usually takes about 3.5 to 4 hours. It is, we break it down, detail it from everything, but it's a mental practice. So we've got everything done. Used to be when I was really crazy, I'd give them a break on Saturday and eat lunch and then come back and do a offensive part. But now my assistant coaches kind of vetoed me on that, so we go out. But what we do that for is because now I don't have to take any time for my practices to break down drills and do all that, because I don't know how y'all feel about it, but here's when we hit the floor after we do our minute or whatever, I want the intensity level through the roof, okay? So if I start out teaching there, I done killed my intensity. Well, if you stop practice in the middle to teach a drill or do something like that, well, then we all know that getting them back focused is absolutely terrible. So then if you wait till the end of it to do it, well, then they're ready to go home. So that, guess what? That don't work out either. So I trade them Fridays for Saturdays. And if I come in on Friday, we may do a light shooting practice that we can get them in, get them out, get them football games or whatever. But we do our Saturday installs, and it has been so good for us to put in the big parts of our program. So all our big parts are covered on those Saturdays and taken care of. And so my practices, when I start on Monday, I ain't got to worry about breaking it down. My kids know exactly what we're doing, and we're going to get after it for 2.5 hours, and we ain't stopping.
How many of these do you have? And are you talking about the very beginning of the regular season you do this, and how many of them?
The first week of practice, we're going to start. We usually have about 5 to 6 Saturdays before we play right in there.
Okay.
So we're going to probably get, and like I said, my kids now, my program, I don't have to do as much. And I even bring sometimes our middle school over and when we're doing our installs. So that, because our middle school do the same thing that we do. So it's a whole teaching day. And so, like I said, we'll break it down. Now we might put in our half court defense and part of our dribble drive offense, and it may take us basically 4.5 to 5 hours. But they know that that's part of it, that they better not miss on a Saturday, because we're not going back to catch them up. It is going to be that situation that everything is put in, and we're not going to be running stuff to get them tired. It's a mental practice to learn everything. And it's really worked really well for us.
I actually like that a lot, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know what that looks like, but I like it a lot.
It's been really good, and it's amazing, like I said, how, like I said, we couldn't find time to teach. You break down one drill and break down this drill, and these are all our foundations. This is our big, important stuff in our program.
We'll do a similar thing, but we'll do it on opening night. Midnight Madness, we start at 12 o'clock. We'll go for an hour and do some fun stuff for the families. Families go home, and I have them the rest of the night. Do the same thing. We'll start installing stuff. We'll have a little bit of film thrown in there. We'll have some deals thrown in there. But we're going to go 12 o'clock at night till 12 o'clock next day. We're going to hit our base installments for everything that first week. There, it's just touching on it and building on it. That's been a big, big thing for us. Like all of you guys, most of our kids that we're dealing with, people from the younger levels from our youth programs, have a good understanding of what you're running. We're teaching the bigger points, smaller points of everything as we move forward.
This kind of goes into the other concept that Tamika brought up when I was asking about what to talk about, but that's pretty much teaching part to whole right there. You say you're breaking everything down, going part, putting the whole together and doing it. What are some other things offensively and defensively you guys do or do you guys not do part whole at all and you just do it a different way?
I'm a Gannon Baker guy. I travel with Gannon for 15 years now. I go to different countries with him. I do a lot of things with Gannon. The thing that I've learned is to take not just skill work, put it into, while you're getting your skill work, you're putting a meaning to it. So you're showing where it comes in. So ball handling is just not ball handling. Coming off the screen is not just coming off the screen. Where do you put it in? Build it from that tiny detail to going against one player to two players. I get off the first guy. How do I react to the second guy? I get off of that. What happens in the third? We break our offenses down that way. We work on this part of it, and then that part of it. Like Mika was talking about her pressure, the same thing in all of our offense. there's always a main side of your offense and the off side of your offense. Biggest thing, never let anybody stand. So we're always just teaching it all in little pieces. And so even in our fundamentals, beginning of practice, it's all based towards our offense and our lots of ball security stuff that's leading towards our offense.
Mike, I think one of the biggest things too that I've had to work on in many years is the progression of your practices all the way during the season. Because if you're doing the same thing in January as you're doing in November, usually it's pretty stale. And so what I mean by that is I've tried to make sure that all my drill work and all that stuff, that as we go on through the season, that it gets tougher and tougher, and we keep adding and adding and adding and making it advantage, disadvantage, or whatever. And I think Chris just said something that's really, really big. And with girls especially, that you don't want to have daggum drill queens. You want to have skill queens. And there's so many girls that look great when you put them out there doing their skills and everything else, but they can't transfer it over to the game. And so I think one of the hardest jobs that we got to do at practice is get them to take the skills that they learn and then make sure that they can take it and transfer it over into the game situation. And I think that's something that you really got to work on in your practice is really, really big.
Yeah, one of the things that we've, it's kind of part whole in the sense of that we're breaking it down, but we do a lot of stuff 3-on-3. We switch to running kind of a matchup zone. We do a lot of presses and stuff, or try to. We'll break all that down usually by 3-on-3 stuff and work on the different traps, the angles, and positions of it. We do it with our offense too. The best thing that we did this past year that was different was we started playing 3-on-3, 4-on-4, full court, live off of a defensive rebound. But what we would do is we would throw it up, start with a defensive rebound, and we automatically trapped and jammed up that defensive rebounder. So now this girl's being trapped, they're going full court, and we had to play and just figure out defensively the rotations, anticipating, working on our traps and stuff. But then offensively, all those fundamentals of timing for a rebound, pivoting and dribbling out to an outlet of pressure, how to find, the 2-on-1, 3-on-1's advantages. That one drill alone really helped us, and for us, it had everything we wanted. It got us defensive intensity. It got us footwork. It got us conditioning. It got us making decisions. So that's something that I'm sure someone's done it before us, but we thought it was a need because I had a 6'1", frail-ass little freshman that every time she got a rebound, she dropped the sumbitch. So we had to get something in there to work on her. And then we just said, well, hey, this works for everybody, not just her. And that little freshman ended up doing pretty good this year for us. So I don't know if that's considered part whole, but that's something that, I would advise everybody to at least consider doing and see if it fits their team.
Somebody mentioned this earlier, but I'd like to get everybody's input on how do they handle turnovers at practice.
From our standpoint, we do run during practice, but it's usually for turnovers. We'll add turnovers for each turnover. They got a baseline. So when we finish that drill, they might have to run so many baselines, but a lot of times they can get the baselines down by offensive rebounds. So, but we do, for lack of a better term, punish. I don't like the word punish, but we do kind of punish them for turnovers. But if they get a chance to bring the numbers down, they get excited. They work hard on the offensive boards, but we try to limit them. But I'll tell you, my teams have always turned the ball over a lot. I don't know what the answer is there, but we average 20 a game always.
Well, hell, we shouldn't listen to Larry then. I'm messing with you, Coach.
But
I had these Velcro numbers 1 through 10 behind each backboard. And 10 is the magic number. If you hit 10 turnovers in practice, and it starts in the beginning drills. The moment you hit 10 turnovers, we all just drop the ball. Keeps everybody aware of turnovers during practice. Turnovers become a lot less. We really focus so much, like we talked about it, on feet on our feet. I think great teams have great feet. And in about 3 minutes into a game, you can figure out if you're about to whip somebody's ass because they walk about 8 times against the press or something just because you sped them up. And they have horrible feet. So I think just having the numbers and the constant reminder on the wall, you see when you get closer to that 10 come, 1 comes off, 2 goes off. You get to like 7, 8, 9. People start really focusing on not turning the ball over. It's always a constant reminder. And you talk about the peer pressure coming in, the peer pressure comes in.
Chris, when do you start that over? I mean, I know it's not 10 for whole practice, is it? Is it 10 for how do you?
Oh yeah, it started. We started right away in our first drills. Like we said last week, I start 250 shots to start practice, and then we're going to stretching, and then our drills start. So in the same thing, we're in a fast break drill. We don't want to throw the ball out of bounds, so it starts right away.
Okay.
And then somebody runs, that kid's just getting their ass beat because they were the 10th turnover. No matter if everybody else turned one over. Then we just started right back over. So it's late in practice. Let's say that we hit 10 with 12 minutes left in practice. I might only put 3 back up there, depending on the time what we got. You can also, if those same numbers, use them. If you want to use them in a drill, you get into a drill, you work on your offense. Put the amount of numbers you want up there. You can use the numbers any way you want. It's just a nice visual learning. Always visual.
Do any of you guys put like turnovers in different categories? Like for me, there's a difference in doing something really stupid with the ball and you trying to have freedom to learn how to play. Like I'm in practice, I have no problem with a turnover if you were trying to do something that was the right idea, you just didn't execute. Because to me, that's what the practice is for me. So like, do you guys, like Chris, do you discern that? Is there certain turnovers that you're not going to count, or anybody else? Like,
All right, I do not punish for turnovers in practice, and I guess it's because of the style that we play. I will correct you on turnovers and explain to you, or I'll ask you what you were doing and wait for your answer. And usually they don't make the same ones, but I don't punish. I don't put them on the line. And they kind of get it after a while because we keep breaking it down. But no, I don't punish. I don't run them. I know the style that we play, like Larry. I mean, because I always compare Monica and us because we're so much alike. We press, aggressive defense, we trap. I know the up-tempo style that we play, we're going to have turnovers. I accept that. And I don't live with a number. I don't say, Lord, we had 30 turnovers. Yeah, but how many did they have? So I don't punish the girls in practice. I do stop, explain, ask, tell me what you were thinking of. What were you trying to do on this? But I don't do the punishment deal.
I will tell you that from my standpoint, and Franklin and I, we coach very similarly. But when I say punish kind of the wrong word. I guess I should use conditioning. Mine's more about conditioning in the middle of practice. I will tell you that we talk about our team, my team getting 20 turnovers a game. Our goal every game, and we talk about it in film, we talk about it in practice. Sometimes I reward them in practice. If we can have a game where we have less than 15 turnovers, we're very, very excited. And that's really our goal. If we have 20 turnovers, I'm usually okay because the other team has 30, but 15 is kind of our magic number that we strive for. And I will tell you that probably 20% of the time, if that might even be a high number, that we make the 15 and below.
Yeah, I think for us over at Stewart, it's more about correcting the turnovers that are like mental mistakes and things that are more avoidable than like you see a play come and it goes off somebody's hands kind of thing. But are you seeing the looks you're supposed to be seeing? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing? Or is it just somebody's got a traveling problem? So every time, they go for a 3, they're traveling and we're losing that possession every game. well, then that's a turnover that we're going to harp on all of our drills. You've opened the door to be picked on now. So everybody's watching your footwork, and we're gonna get that straight. But I think it's kind of, more structured as to is it doing what we need it to do.
The thing about us with turnovers is, again, and I talked about this 2 seasons ago. Like I said, I felt like we were a really bad passing team. So every day, it's our passing drills as far as full court, full speed, passing and catching, making the right play, making the right look at high speeds. My biggest pet peeve is live ball turnovers. Like live ball turnovers that lead to layups and things like that, because to me, that's ultimately how you lose games. You can control games. Dead ball turnover, you get a chance to go play some defense and stuff like that. So just trying to be the best passing team we can be. Turnovers in practice, I don't really have a punishment for them. It usually comes when we start getting to play really sloppy. I'll stop it. We'll adjust some things, have some few choice words, and get them back refocused and things like that.
Getting back to the part whole method stuff, what do some of you guys do with either, like I know Gene's dribble drive, and if some of you guys ever have concepts, Grush, what do you guys do with either offense or defense from that standpoint with your teaching?
We run way too much stuff anymore. When I was at Dan River before I got here, we ran a ton of dribble drive. We were pressing offense just because we couldn't make a freaking shot. We just wanted to throw it up there and get 4 offensive rebounds so somebody was going to dunk it. Now for us here, we run way too much stuff. Like overcoach a lot. I think we try to put in too much stuff. We run a ton of sets. So I think we run way too much stuff. We don't press a ton like we did, in my earlier years, because, I just don't think that we, I think we've got the athletes here to be able to press locally, but I don't think that we can press on the state level, to be honest with you. And, like, if we can't do that, then I'm not a big proponent of doing it now. And then, if we get to, in March, all of a sudden, oh, shit, we can't press. Like, what does that say to your team? So, we're way more structured probably now than we ever have been. We do have, obviously freedom with them what we do, but we run a lot of stuff now. We had 2 big kids this year that we ran a lot of stuff through. We'll have a really good guard next year. We'll run a lot of stuff through him. I think for us, it kind of dictates year to year on what we do and how we do it. But again, like I was talking to another coach, and he was asking me about pressing, and my first question to him was, can you press in the state championship game against the best team? He's like, no. And it's like, why the hell would you press now then? Because you're not going to change things when you get to that point. So that's kind of who we are and what we do now.
I run very boring offense, so I can't talk on offense. You can count my offenses on one hand, and that's eliminate a couple of fingers too.
And we have like 82 offense. I've got an assistant coach who's great. Like we'll put in a set, and he'll come up to me, grab my shorts. Coach, let's put a little tinker on this, because if we get him to do this to this to this, then we can run this audible off of this offense. I'm like, dude, we've gotten 82 offenses in right now. You're just trying to add like 7 more on this one play. So we're lucky. We've got some really smart kids on our team that honestly can digest it, and we can kind of roll with them. But that was this year. Next year may be totally different with my guys.
My mother is 89 years old and comes to our games and asks me one night, didn't you run this about 30 years ago? Yep.
I love it. That's fantastic. Hey, if it works, what's the matter, right? We still got a bucket right there, didn't we? That's all that matters.
We do a whole lot too. Everything just comes off of basically 3 base sets and about 7 options off of each. But it's really one person or 2 people doing something. It looks like it's all complicated. It's really, really simple. Like my 3rd grade is learning the exact same set, and they can learn it. So I think you can make it as complicated as you want. Like kind of run 81 way different. And that's tough. But if you keep things fairly simple, here and there. Bottom line is they have great feet, pass the ball well, and got somebody who makes other people better. It's all funny. Like, we're all having all these great conversations. Let's be honest. Unless we got them studs out there, we all look like even running the best.
Offensively, we're true read and react. We're 5 out, 4 out, sometimes 3 out, read and react, and everything is off of reads, actions, and different concepts and triggers. I know that somebody was saying earlier when they were talking about their practice where they don't do a lot of or any like full court scrimmaging. For us, it's the opposite because we run the read and react from preseason all the way into the first part of the year. There's a lot of like in practice, every half court drill turns into a full court scrimmage because if not, my kids don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what actions that they can find because, like I said, we don't run a bunch of scripted offense. So it's finding the backdoor cuts, finding the perfect back screens, the screener becomes shooter actions. So like I said, it's a lot of pickup, a lot of full court scrimmage, them kind of figuring out what they can get, who's going to do what, and, getting used to getting up and down and finding the different matchups and stuff like that.
Right. And I was going to say, that one of the areas I feel like for me as a coach that I feel like is one of our weaker points is teaching that read and react. Like, we have a really good team this year. And I want to get all the kids involved in the offense. I would love to hear more about, for those of you that do run the read and react, like how do you build that? Like we've done it a couple times and tried it, and it's just like it's been a failure. Like our kids just can't grasp the concepts, the spacing, and so it's hard for me to accept as a coach that it's got to be us. It's got to be something we can do to get these kids to do it, And we've done it with a couple different teams of ours, but we always kind of revert back to more set offense. Like I'm more of a defensive oriented coach. Like I let our defense drive our offense. Like I don't want to play half court offense at all if possible. So we run a lot of different defenses, but the read and react has been like, I want to know how people build that because I can't get our kids to for it to be, automatic for them.
To me, because I'm kind of the same. I've kind of went away from it a little bit because so many people in our area seem to be running it now. It's like 3/4 of our schedule is running it. Kind of like in football when you throw some weird offense in there. I feel like people had to prepare for you. I kind of ran from it. But in next year's team, I'm not going to have – for the first time in about 4 or 5 years, I'm not going to have that offense runs through this kid. Mm-hmm. We've had that for a while, so I would really love to hear a lot about read and react or anything.
So the crazy thing for me was how I actually got even remotely interested in the read and react was Mike. So a couple years ago, he kind of brought it to my attention. We talked about it. I had always been a dribble drive guy, and I did some research on it. I went and got the Rick Torbett video, the basics of the read and react. So I started there. And just like every other coach, and what I hope a lot of people do is, of course, when you adopt stuff, we've just kind of tend to make it our own. At first, when we first started running it, I was finding it was hard because I had 2 studs, and it was a little bit too free flowing. People were kind of shooting the ball that I didn't want shooting the ball. And I couldn't get my studs the shots that I wanted them to get. So they learned how to play that inside out. When they cut, they stay, they can post, they can pop out on screens and stuff like that. And to be honest with you, what it really has been is making them run it in everything that we do. So when we play pickup, score and transition if you can, make the right decisions. But if you're playing in half court, it's read and react principles. It's feeding it into the post, Laker cutting off, looking backside, finding pin screens. It's really just been a lot of playing, stopping them when they play. Hey, now let's look at this option right here, and asking them, what do you see right here? What do you have? When this defender is doing this, what can you do from here? And it kind of it morphed itself. It was kind of just because my first 2 years, I was ready to scrap it. But, I've always kind of had in my head, like, look, man, like, yo, all right, we started this in the preseason. We're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. And just doing it all the time and playing it in pickup and watching this on video and looking at the stuff that we missed and things like that, they understood that somebody's cut is going to lead to somebody else's spacing that we can get a back door off of, or if we got the right matchup, we'll dribble at this person, we'll get them to cut through, then we can stop in the post. It's just been a bunch of repetition. And Eastern Kentucky, the old staff at Eastern Kentucky on the women's side, they ran the read and react. And a good friend of mine, a guy named Adam Seguin, he's the Dobo at Campbell Women's Basketball. He had a friend who was also the video coordinator at Eastern Kentucky. So he got me some film to watch them run it. They had been running it a while. UNC Charlotte's women, they were running it a couple years ago. So I was going to practices. I was collecting film. And what I found is everybody was running it to make it their own. Next year, my team is going to look a lot different than it has the past 2 years. And we'll still run read and react, but we'll run a lot more post-entry stuff. I got a big kid who can pass out of the post. So she'll be more of a playmaker than just a back-to-the-basket scorer this year. So like I said, Coach, to answer your question, man, it's just kind of dumb luck and playing with it, playing pickup, me learning it. I try to get out there and play pickup with my kids sometimes, and I find that I can, like, once I'm playing it and I can do a lot of stuff and I learn it the way that they learned it. So when we're in game or in practice, I can stop them and say, hey, what else can we do in this situation? What do you got right here? Who's being overplayed? Okay, who do we want to have the ball in this situation? How do we get them the ball? And, just kind of letting them figure it out. So, yeah, it was dumb luck that we stumbled on it, man, and we've started to become pretty good with it. I got a 2020 UNC Charlotte signee who's been running it for the past 3 years, and she mastered it, and she allowed us to be really, really good in it.
And I'll just piggy off of Mel because, like you said, like I was really big on, but one thing I've learned, and I've actually changed now more to, I've went from read and react to dribble drive, whereas Mel went from dribble drive to read and react. We went the opposite way on the spectrum when we talked. And at least for me with my team and what is, I figured out that my whole purpose on offense is to get an advantage to a disadvantage. That's all it is. I really don't care what we call it, triangle bullshit. It really doesn't matter. I want to find a way to get the ball in the paint off of a pass or off a dribble for a layup or a kick out three. And the best way to do that spacing wise is to keep people 15, 16 some feet apart. So that ended up being, okay, well, I got to have people in the corners. All right. Well, how many posts can I have? Like, this year I had a big girl that was back to the basket. Things look different. In the past, I've done 5 out, all those different things, but at least for me, my whole thought process of offense has changed to, okay, I like read and react. I like dribble drive. I like some sets. The honest to God's truth is I got to get the ball to my best player when the game slows down and let them have the ball. Like, that just is what it is. We can call it whatever we want to, but the best thing I've ever done is get my best player the ball on the elbow, because you can't, within the rules of basketball, guard that. So all of our sets have the same stuff. Savannah Derry is 6'1". She gets the ball somewhere 12 feet from the bucket, and you can't stop her from getting to the lane in high school basketball. Now, Franklin's got Ayanna Rogers, who can come up and block her shit because they're equal athletic, but we don't see that too often. If we played you at Civil Friends, like, you have some kids that can play with her athletically, but most kids don't. So I think you just got to put it together. I don't think you have to be a slave to run, read, and react, though. I think you just need to figure out, these are what my players do good. I got to get slasher. I got to do shooter. Well, just put her where she needs to be a shooter at, put her where she can slash and not worry about what it's called.
And that's kind of how it's been with us. It's morphed every year. The same basic principles are still there. The hardest thing for my kids to learn with the read and react was the circle action on drives, because what we've been traditionally taught is if somebody's driving strong side, be the strong side wing, move to the corner, get ready to catch and shoot. But once we drilled, like I said, I had a pretty good guard who was lightning quick. She beats a lot of people off the dribble. She's driving to get, and again, where we had to kind of adopt a little bit of the old dribble drive principles. She's driving to get to that second hash. If she gets to that second hash, she's not passing. And if somebody steps over, it's gonna be a block. We're going to shoot 2 free throws. Now, if they rotate over early enough, and that's an easy pass that she's easily gonna see. So again, I'm interested to see this year, and of course, because we've lost April and May, and probably gonna lose June, I haven't had a chance to see what it's gonna morph into for this year.
I have a question for everybody. How do you guys adapt a lot of that to girls with the lower basketball IQ? Obviously, I played some of you guys, but when you've got 2 or 3 girls who are pretty good, and you've got 3, 4, 5, 6 girls who don't have a super high IQ, or soccer first or softball first, how do you guys adapt things like that are a little bit higher IQ-wise to those players?
See, for me, same thing, talking about the read and react. When you don't have those players that have that ability and that IQ, the read and react gives you a set of rules to follow for those kids. If somebody drives at you, cut. If you pass, cut, field to the top. So, you know what I mean? So they're not lost in the shuffle. Of course, those are just the kids that I don't want to have the ball in their hands making decisions.
And Raven, I'll be honest with you, I think most high school teams, they got 3 decision makers. They got 2 duds out there at any given time, potentially, at least to some level. Maybe your dud's still going low Division I, but your other 3 are going high Division I, Power 5. Well, for me, I'll be honest with you, here's one thing that really works. If you just stick your dud in the corner, most of the damn teams are still going to go guard her. They're not smart enough to not guard her. Like, can anybody doubt that? I mean, they're not smart enough to not guard her. Then
my duds are definitely not. My duds are like Division 5 or 6. So
hey, teach your duds how to shoot the ball and put them in the corner. I promise you that works.
And the greatest pressure release ever is having a dud on the floor that they don't guard, because then you get trapped in pressure. Just throw it to the dud. And I have a great and Mel knows this dude, Kenny Carter. I once heard Kenny Carter tell somebody in an AAU game, "Hun, you can't dribble, pass it, or shoot it. Just don't." And you go, "What do I do when I get the ball?" Either call a timeout or wait till someone gets it from you. So a little different, but I want to end on this and appreciate you guys because this has been a good one because we have so many different opinions. So I love that. And this is a little bit of a selfish reason, but I want to talk about what your guys' thoughts are with press breaks and beating pressure, because I know I have a lot of coaches here that do press, and I know that we all know the main concepts of how to beat a press, and we all know that if you have superior team than the team pressing you, you're going to beat it because your players are better. I'm talking about when you went up and the other team you played was actually better. They were superior athletes than you. What have you done that's neutralized that? What have you done either from a teaching concept, if it's an X and O thing, awesome, but like what do y'all emphasize? And I know Chris Dotson says a lot like get your feet right, you got to have good feet. Like what's y'all's thoughts on that?
No, you're fine.
I'll start off with, I think one of the biggest things with any type of press breaker is you can't guard space. I mean, space is, you can't guard it. So your spacing and all like that is got to be really good. You know, we're a pressing team, and we tell people all the time that they're going to run 50 different press breakers. And so you can't prepare for them all. So, but what you got to do is you got to be able to guard and know your spacing and how to close and everything else. So I think spacing, because almost every press breaker turns into a ball, somebody trailing behind the ball with a ball reversal, a center pass, a pass down the sideline, and a diagonal pass. Okay. Almost everything turns into that. Almost any way you get into it, that's correct spacing. And how you get into it, that's fine. But I think one of the biggest things that you can beat people with is straight line attacks. Most defenses don't do well because they're used to being in an attacking mode. So what I try to tell my offensive players is to make sure that you're looking to attack their hips. And with traps, we're never going to try to split middle. We're always going to try to pull back crossover and attack one-on-one on one of the trap side. So I think that, like I said, you know, everybody's got different opinions, and we all got cute press breakers and everything else. But I think they all turn into making sure that you have space and you have pressure relief and ball reversal. But I think making sure that you attack straight line and making sure you attack the defense before they attack you a lot of times is huge. And making sure that you're stepping and meeting the ball. And our press, we try to tell them that, okay, we're going to play 2 steps in front of when you look to intercept a pass, you're not going to play 1 step in front. You're going 2 steps because a good offensive player has been taught to step to the ball. So if they step to the ball and you're 1 step in front in your interception line, you're going to run into them. So we try to teach them 2 steps in front. Well, like I said, with that offensive player meeting the ball and all those different small things is just huge. So I just, like I said, spacing and attacking straight line. And I'm with Chris too, man. Proper footwork and balance, man. So many kids are play off balance all the time because defenses take their balance. And when they take their balance, they take their strength. Take their strength, they can't pass.
I was right on with him. First thing I had when I mentioned this was attack hips. Especially in girls basketball, a little bitty pretty. If you got a little over guard up there and you attack a hip, throw your head back a little bit, people aren't pressing you long. That's their deep. They can't get foul trouble. Second thing I put on there was create space with your dribble. Not enough people will use their dribble to create space. Like create a closeout. I can back up for a second and get you moving. And then I can attack this slow. It's easy, right? If I make a defense move 2 steps, I know who the slowest person is. Now I attack that. If I back up 2 dribbles and raise up a little bit, they rise up, then I can attack. It's attack the slowest trap. We do all those same rules you just said, Coach. We're catching the ball. We're looking sideline, middle, back. First, the same thing. Everything we got goes right into those same rules. So, like you said, somebody's always at the sideline, somebody's in the middle. We always make a box. Figure if you're trapping me, there's only 3 more people. Right. They can't guard the other 3 people in the box. So as long as you make a box, 2 people are trapping you. Got 2 people to play the other 3. Life becomes pretty easy. And we also do a lot of stuff, but we try to keep size in the trap spots. We really go size, just a really good guard. A lot of times if we can go size, you can step out in first class and 6'1" can handle the ball a little bit fast and had great IQ. It's hard to trap her just because she's over traps. We don't play in a very tall league. If we're playing you guys, that probably doesn't. Don't play in a very tall league.
I'm gonna give you 2 things real quick that we do, and we all do the same thing because we all want to. If we're pressing, we know we can beat anybody's press. But I live by these 2 things, and I've been this way since college: composure and quality passes. That's our whole thing about anybody that presses us. composure, quality passes. We know what we want to be. We know where the angles are and what we want to do, but those are the two things that we preach. I try to keep it as simple as I can for them. We know where we want to get it to, just composure and quality passes.
I was going to just say I agree with all those points. And one other thing that we focus on too is trying to get the kids away from the ball to continue like to move or flash. We do a lot of cutters and flashers and keep kids even moving up the alleys, especially like into even front press. But all those things I agree with. I think that for us, one of the things that we kind of emphasize is getting the kids to keep the space, but try to move, whether it's a flasher coming from opposite or whatever. And getting them to remember to do it. Like sometimes I just want to stand around and watch the person with the ball, you know what I mean? And so trying to keep them active away from the ball too.
Mike, I want to add one other thing, if you don't mind. We use our fives a lot to help break pressure, because the reason why we do is because, number one, we train them to feel comfortable with the basketball and everything else. But we feel like a lot of times that the other people's fives, man-to-man wise, zone-wise, whatever, they're not trained to do that as much as quick guards and everything else. So our fives are always working in the middle of the floor. And so our fives are taught, you know, we don't want to put it on the floor a lot of times unless we got a special one, but they're always flashing, working in the middle of the floor, and they're always looking to turn inside out every time they get it, because that's going to spread the pressure away. But another thing that we teach, especially on the half court, a lot of times it's half court traps, is we teach our fives what we call the dead area. And the dead area to us is when somebody's trapped, that they're going to come up, not 12 to 15 foot spacing, but they're coming up around 8 foot spacing, right in the center of that trap, because most people don't ever cover that. And that's why we call it the dead area. And so our fives know, especially, and like I said, people like the half court trap us and stuff like that, that if we start hollering dead, 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 our fives know that that's where they're looking at attacking right in there and looking to go inside out, because a lot of people can't cover that space area in there in the middle, right? It's dead in the seam of the trap in the middle.
Yeah.
I think we all know too, like, you always say this to kids laugh at them. Like, the key to pressure is pressure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people were like, what do you mean? If you're 4 foot off of somebody in a great defensive stance, well, hell, you're just giving them a great view of the floor. Mm-hmm. So I think the key to beating a press is being able, as an individual, to relieve that pressure. Like Coach said, to be composed with it and know what you're going to do when somebody gets up close. As long as you have a dribble, you have an option to relieve that pressure. So, again, you fight pressure with pressure, relieve pressure, and you feel better and you feel more comfortable.
Well, and I'll tell you guys a quick story, but so Franklin and I, we played each other in the Final Four this year. And, you know, we do film, and we played each other at Christmas, and they beat us at our place, and we go into that game. Our point guard knows where the hole is. We saw it on film. Okay, here's where it is. We worked on it. When we got out there to do it, she couldn't see that shit worth anything. Because you can't emulate if you don't have the same type of athletes. And that's what I run into sometimes. Like, and you know, Brad's on here. Like, I don't fear when Brad presses as a Pulaski, and you don't do it a lot, Brad, either. But, like, that's a pretty equal athletic matchup, and honestly, we win it. So if he's going to press us full court, like, Savannah Dare is just going to catch it over all your kids and do it. My problem is, like, this past year, Harris has that over me. You know, there's nothing we can do. I would love to get into a half-court game. You know, the year before that, Diane took it to us in the full court and took it to us in the half court. They were at a 1-4 play and just killed us about 5 or 6 times on the same thing. So it probably wouldn't have mattered either way there. But it's just so hard getting, you know, you may teach them, but there's still something about that composure thing that they have to have.
Yeah.
I think also teaching them that a great press doesn't mean you steal the ball.
Absolutely.
And having a great press break means understanding that.
Mm-hmm.
If I pitch it to you and you're wide open shooting it with no rebounder, number one, there's probably a reason you're wide open.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have a rebounder, that's a loss. So we tell people all the time, we got the ball at the other end of the court. We took a shot with no rebounder, we lost. If the wrong person takes a shot, we lose. Or we just hurriedly get one off balance or something. Even with the right player, sometimes we've just lost that press break. So understanding what breaking a press means. Sometimes it is getting down there and scoring if it's the right shot. Understanding that oftentimes your better players may be a part of breaking the press. And maybe your weaker ones are back in there. I feel like I win a press if I get certain kids to take the shots 4 or 5 times if their best player on the other side of half court.
I think trying to get, like Franklin said, like his biggest thing is composure and quality passes. And I think that's the biggest thing that we try and drill into our kids. Like we'll have some of the male coaches come down and we'll do like 8-on-5. And I know we're not gonna get it past half court for the next 5 minutes. But I want to see who on my team, number one, steps up and tries to keep everybody's poise and try and keep getting the ball up the floor, or if we turn against each other. Because if we turn against each other and we're all turning it over, like I'm setting you up for failure for a reason, right? So we're trying to kind of build that composure, but also kind of emulate the size in areas where if we're going 5-on-5 against each other, we certainly aren't going to be able to, do that, have that kind of size, that kind of athleticism, that kind of length that we're going to see against other teams. So kind of have that, but also try and teach them poise. But I think that composure piece also goes back to just straight up fundamentals, like stuff you're working on every day. Like I want all my kids, whether you're a 1, whether you're my point guard or you're my 5, to be comfortable with the ball in your hand, to turn and pivot with the ball and be able to make a good, strong pass and not, be back on your heels and throw a bailout, right? So I think all that kind of goes together.
Somebody sent the Maryland pass shooting drill the other day to one of us. I can't remember who it was, but I appreciate you sending it. But Neighbors was on there talking about something, and he put out a quote on the board that kind of goes to practice, and it goes to what we're talking about. And it's going to be something I steal for next year. But on that quote, it basically said, practice chaos equals game calmness. And man, let me tell you what, that's exactly why, Coach was talking about that situation earlier about composure and everything else. That's why I think your practices have got to be so chaotic sometimes and so getting after people and everything else, because you can't create game calmness without practice chaos. And that was a great quote that stuck with me. And as a matter of fact, like I said, already stole it, love it, and it pertains to kind of what we talked about tonight.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything, whether about that topic or just anything at all? Bruce, you've been quiet today, man. You didn't have.
I've been trying to sit back and listen and learn a little bit tonight.
I got you. Well, my last thing, Franklin, can you please explain to all of us the way to beat your press so the other ones can know? Not for me.
Anybody can beat my press. It's not a question of can you beat it, because yes, you can. It's all right, I'm gonna put it out there. It is, can you keep going after it for 32 minutes of hell that we try to put on the floor? It's a standard press. There's no secrets to it. It is just, we're going to come after you for 32 minutes. You know the press is coming, and everybody knows what it is, but it's just that constant coming after you every time we score or there's a turnover. And yeah, we do it differently because we will still press you on a turnover. I'm going to trap you somewhere. I'm going to make you play faster than you want to play. That is the whole philosophy of our press. Not, can I get a turnover, which is nice, and get a quick score. But I want to make you play faster than you want to play for two reasons. There is no shot clock in Virginia, and I can't stand the running clock rule.
Coach, can I ask you two things? Number
Yes, sir.
one, what press are you running? Is it a 2-2-1, 1-2-1-1? What 1-2-2? Or is it something I've never seen you play?
My standard my standard press is a 2-2-1.
Okay, because as you're sitting there saying that, I'm laughing to myself because that's exactly what we do. We teach people to wear you down. I don't care if you got 5 of the best athletes in the world. He's going to be your 5 against our 10, and we're going to press every time you. Do you press miss shot?
Yes, I will.
That's what we press, made miss shot, and mix up pressure points and all of that. So I appreciate you sharing it. But you run a 2-2-1.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I do, and there really is nothing different. I try to take angles away, and I just try to take lines away, and it is truly just, can you take it for 32 minutes?
See, you said something that I truly believe in. What we're trying to do is everybody's going to go in and practice, do their little practice for so-and-so time, and everybody's going to have a good time, and everybody's going to shoot the ball this way. And then we're going to make you play a whole different way. We're going to make you neglect your whole practice. Because we're going to speed you. And like Chris said, if we can get you to shoot it out of the corner with no rebounding, guess what? That is a victory. You can shoot it all you want. And so I was real interested when I heard your philosophy, because that matches a lot of what we do.
Bruce, you're probably thinking, why are all these people worried about the press? Well, the thing is, in girls, the girls can't see to throw it all the way across the court half the time. Like guys, they can just launch it. We can't.
Hey, look, when I was at Dan River, we pressed the entire game, and our motto was, we're going to foul you 100 times a game. We're going to be as physical as possible. And those officials are going to call maybe 15 and a half, and we're going to get away with 70 fouls a game. And we just wore you out, just beat the hell out of you and wore you out. I don't have that. I don't have that luxury here.
Gotcha.
Well, I mean, it's also, I know for me, and what we do is you got to be committed to the press. I've had people to ask me, about the press, and just real quick, and I'll tell y'all what I always tell people is, you got to be committed. Do you have the athletes to press the style that you want to press? When do you want to press? And how long do you want to press? Those are the things that I believe in, and that is my philosophy on my press. I never wanted to be a coach that said, well, I'm going to press because I'm behind. But do you have the athletes to do that? And I've been very blessed at where I've been, and especially at Highland Springs. I've had the athletes. I've had girls who are committed to it. And this is when you know that that it is ingrained in them. You press first quarter and you're up big, and you put your second 5 in, and you tell them, okay, we're going to play half-court defense. I kid you not, it happens every time I do this. And they'll look at me and say, why can't we press? You killed us in practice. Why can't we press? So that's why I say we press 32 minutes. Yes, I get a lot of grief for it. Yes, I get hammered by people because they say I press too much. I run the score up. I do this. I do that. And that's just us. That's our philosophy. That pressure defense, that is Highland Springs girls basketball. And I don't think there's anybody that I really haven't pressed. I pressed Diane when she was at Edison. Didn't stay in it a whole game. But yeah, I mean, that's our style. That's our philosophy. The girls accept it. They understand it. They know when they come there what it is. When your middle school coaches come up there and watch practice and they want to learn that press, and I tell them it's nothing to it. You got to be committed to it. That's the whole thing. You just got to be committed to it.
Can't have any traitors in the press.
No,
That's what we call them. We call them can't
No.
have no traitors.
you are exactly right. And no pink panties.
There you go.
Last question we leave on this. Those of you that press a good bit, what's the fewest amount of players that you can actually play in your state championship game rotation? I didn't say a normal rotation. I said state championship game rotation and be able to press the full game. What's the fewest amount of people that can be in your state championship game rotation? Like nuts on the line, like you're playing with these people. How many?
8.
For us, it's 9. We don't zone. We don't zone press. We man press. We man press, jump and rotate. 9. I'm comfortable with playing. I'll play 9 every game, no matter who we're playing, what we're doing.
So I heard a lot of 8s. Can anybody say 6 or 7?
I would do 7 in a tight game. I'd prefer 8, but I would go to 7 as long as I got one guard that can give a guard a break, and I got a post that can give the 4 or 5 a break. I can do 7, but most of the time we try 8.
So let me ask you guys this very specifically. If I got 6 that are good, like good, but I have 6, not 7. Do I just say, well, I'm going to put a 7th in there and just teach them how to play really hard, which we all know we can do, even if they're not very good offensively? Can we?
No, I mean, that's up to you.
And I think
That's up to you. That's your commitment.
Mike, I think that you can take 2 kids and you can teach them their roles and you can teach them what they need to do all the way around for the roles to make you successful. And you got to get them, like we just talked about earlier, not to be traitors. If they're going to press with your other kids, they got to be the hardest pressing kids in there, and they got to know their roles. And I definitely think you can do it because we have kids that some of them they can't help us in some ways, but they can help us by getting there and playing hard. And I said 8 because of this, because I believe that, and you're talking about it's a difference if you're pressing the full game. And like us, we're going to press the full game. It's 32 minutes. There is a time that I might not press, but not very much. But with that 8, I'm also taking into account for foul trouble. Because if you go press, you're going to get in foul trouble every now and then. So I think you got to have that, and you got to be able to have the situation where that 8 gives you enough flexibility to put the people in the positions to do it.
And I think it also depends on what you're playing against. There's many times that maybe if the other team is patient on offense, maybe a lot of fouls called, tempo of the game. Unless you know whether you're going to just play 7 or you have to push it to 8 or 9. If both of you are doing similar things and the game's doing this, it's really tough to try to play in that situation. We'll have teams that we feel like we're even with, maybe just a little bit deeper. But hell, we don't care if we make shots. We just care that the game goes here for a while because we're going to outlast. And so I think that a lot of times it depends on the pace of the game, how the game is being officiated. If the game's going to get slowed down, you're speeding them up as much as you can to keep it slowed down. Maybe ought to go 7.
And Mike, I'll say I was in that situation this year because being my first year at Sidwell, we had some really good players, but we had other kids who just basketball was just not their thing. So we were almost forced to that situation. We played St. John's in the state championship, and I had a kid out there that's a lacrosse player, but we had to go with her, and we probably were 6 deep. 6. She was probably our 7th, and she was not a basketball player. But we were able throughout the course of the season to teach her, how to play defense, how to play hard. And her stat line was 0 at every game, but at one point she started for us most of the season just because we had to start her. But again, she was probably our 6th man. And then we had a kid that was injured most of the season, but at the end of the season, she was 7. She came off the bench, our seventh man, but she played hard. She couldn't shoot. She could pass the ball to Kiki Rice, and but she could play defense, and we taught her how to play defense, and she did the job. She had the job done. So, and she could rebound a little bit too. Turn that bitch over afterwards, but hey.
Well, I appreciate you guys because that's just where I'm at right now. I know what I want to do with everything, assuming the season's normal like it should be. I just don't know yet how much I want to press because I want to press, but I also don't want it to end up hurting me. And I challenge, well, can I get to the state title game pressing? That's my question. Because I know I can do it around here, but I can do anything around here and probably have some level of success. Can I get to the state title game pressing? And that's something that I'm still trying to figure out.
Mike, one thing that I'll add to that Coach said a little earlier, I think Coach Franklin, and I think this is so important, is if you got, I think, because this has been said tonight, and that was a great point of if you're going to press, can you press the team in state championship? I think that's totally true. But the other thing I think that people make a mistake trying to press is dabbling in it. You can't dabble in the press. You got to either make a commitment to it, and your kids have got to make a commitment to it. But you can't just dabble in it a lot of times. I think if you're just dabbling in it, you're wasting your time. You need to invest in something else. I really do. And I'm not saying you got to commit to do like I know Coach Harris. I heard him and I'm the same way as he is. 32 minutes made, and I'm not saying that, but I don't think it's worth your time if you're just going to use it as a tempo breaker or something. It's got to be something you commit to, and your kids have got, because everything works. There's not any defense or offense that don't work. It's what you get your kids to believe in. That's the whole thing. I mean, that's a key to great coaching to me is it's all been designed to score, and it's all been designed to stop scores. But the big thing is which coaches are going to get their kids to believe in what they do. That's the whole selling point. And so a lot of times the commitment to it is what you got to look at sometimes.
I think you also have to take into consideration that that state championship game is on a college court, longer court, more space. You're with a short rotation, that could be tough.
Mm-hmm.
That's why our high school gym's 94 feet. So we practice on that.
Yeah. But it feels bigger though too. Like it just, even though it's the same distance as full, it just feels bigger, so mentally, but no, guys, I appreciate you guys being on here and I don't know about you, I got a lot out of tonight just because it was a lot of different opinions and a lot of different ways to do things. One thing I like about this group is everybody here is successful in what they do, so everybody's confident in being able to say, well, I do it this way, and no one's butthurt about it. Everybody just takes what they can and gets better. So I appreciate you guys, and again, just thank you for your time and sharing. Hopefully we can keep on doing this, but I appreciate y'all.
Coach, I want to tell y'all, I really appreciate y'all letting a Georgia boy hang out with y'all. I really do. I enjoy every Thursday night. I'm with some other Georgia coaches, and they're all mad at me because I'm always telling them I got to go meet with these Virginia coaches and all these coaches in the Southeast, and they all get mad at me. But I really enjoy sharing with y'all some great ideas, some great people on here. And I don't take things for granted in my life. I'm old now, and so I look at these things, and I don't take y'all for granted. And I really appreciate you having me on and sharing and everything else, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Same
everyone.
here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, guys.
Mike, another good one, brother.